Pop quiz. What is the most consumed best-selling liquor on the planet? Hey everyone, welcome back to DDK. The answer to the question, if you haven't guessed by the title of this video, is Korean soju. It is the best-selling alcohol on the planet, dare I say the universe, and has been for about a decade and a half, I think. So that gives us a little clue into how much Koreans drink and how important this little green bottle is to all kinds of social situations and even professional situations. It's a drink enjoyed by all ages, from college kids to the elderly. I've seen a lot of grandparents throwing back shots of this stuff. Hi. Want to say hello? Oh, here we go. This video was inevitable. You cannot have a discussion about Korean culture without talking about soju. It is by no means the only alcohol available in Korea. There are lots of other Korean liquors, but soju is definitely the king of them all. So I've decided to take a little stroll and talk to you a little bit about what soju is, where it comes from, and just how important it is to Korea. All right, story time. I was first introduced to soju very shortly after arriving in Korea just over 10 years ago. I was at a restaurant called the Honey Pig with all of my coworkers. It was like a welcome dinner welcoming me to Korea. And I remember being introduced to soju. I liked it. It was easy to drink. So for the next few weeks, I tried it a couple times, and then Christmas is when my perception of soju changed, at least for a few years. I went to a Christmas party at my boss's house where there was wine and soju and a bunch of food. And then I left that party and a bunch of my new foreign friends were meeting at a barbecue restaurant, and we stayed until the sun came up drinking soju, I don't know how many bottles. And the next 2 days I was stuck in my apartment, either on my bed trying not to move, or my head was in the toilet. So after that, I had a hard time throwing back soju for a few years. I'm proud to say now that I can drink soju with the best of them. I drink it like a true Korean ajushi, and I can throw back a few bottles on my own. I don't do it too frequently. I'm more of a beer guy, but I do enjoy soju now. Cost. Soju is incredibly cheap. At a restaurant, a bottle will cost you 4,000 won. At a convenience store, you can get soju, it varies a little bit depending on where you are and what kind you get, but around 1,200 won, which is I think about $1.40 Canadian or $1.10 American, which is cheaper than some bottles of water, I believe, back home. So I was gonna go the month of February alcohol free, but as I was doing research and learning about soju and talking about soju, I decided it would be a little disingenuous for me to not partake. So I'm gonna crack a bottle and have a wee little taste as I talk to you guys about soju. Now there's this thing you're supposed to do, it's called the Soju Tornado. See if I can make it happen. No. There is a whole etiquette to drinking soju. I do plan on doing another video where I just talk about the etiquette or the rules of drinking soju. I'm not going to follow those today. I'm all by myself. I've asked a few Korean people if they wouldn't mind being in a video with me and talking about drinking etiquette in Korea, and so far they've all been camera shy. So if there's anyone in this neighborhood or lives near me that doesn't mind being on camera and wants to sit and do a video about drinking and have a few drinks with me, please let me know. Anyway, I will let you in on one little rule. You will not see Koreans sitting down at a table with alcohol without some kind of food or something to eat. So I did buy some anju. I got some jerky. All right, konbae. Alright, so what is soju? Traditional soju is made from rice, but these days it can be made with any kind of starchy ingredient. A lot of people confuse Korean soju with Japanese sake, but that's not really a fair comparison because sake is brewed from rice, which makes it a rice wine. Korean soju is distilled, which makes it a rice whiskey. So they are two different alcohols. They're not the same thing. Soju is distilled at very high temperature, which is where it gets its name. Soju actually means burned liquor. As for the taste, rum, tequila, whiskey, rye, gin, they all have very specific or unique flavors. Soju does not. Soju is more like a vodka, more neutral tasting. I've heard that Russians refer to soju as baby vodka because it tastes so similar. It's just like half the alcohol content. So the alcohol content can vary depending on the brand. The most common ones you'll see around are in the green bottle here. These are about 17%. This one is 16.9% alcohol, but you can find the more traditional sojus now up to like 40%. There are 7 shots in each bottle, which is quite a clever marketing scheme. Soju is meant to be a social drink, so drinking with other people. And 7 is an odd number, so Koreans will not do shots by themselves. So when you do a shot, the whole table has to do a shot, and vice versa. Having 7 shots in a bottle just means that you need to buy bottles in multiples of 2. Pretty clever there, soju companies. As always, I've done a little bit of research. This might surprise some people, including some Koreans, but soju does not originate in Korea. It was introduced back in the 13th century by the Mongols, but it wasn't invented by the Mongols either. Genghis Khan, while he was invading Persia in the early 13th century, Genghis Khan found a whole bunch of new technology. One of those things that he found was this distilling technique. Whoa! And so that's where he was introduced to a drink called arak. Yeah! The Mongols invaded Korea several times in the 13th century, 1231 to 1270, I think. At that time, Korea was known as Goryeo, and the capital city was Kaesong, which is now part of North Korea, not South Korea. So the Mongols set up a bunch of distilleries in Kaesong. Mongols headed south, they were going to invade Japan, so they kind of set up a supply base in the city of Endong, and that's where they set up a bunch of other distilleries. And that's why today Endong is kind of known as the birthplace of Korean version of arakju, which then became soju. Traditionally, rice was the main ingredient to make soju. They'd ferment rice and then distill it. But that changed in 1965. After the Korean War, or as it's known here, the 625 War, I think. After the war, Korea was not in a good shape. Rice was a scarcity. So the government put a ban on using rice to make alcohol. This is when Korean soju kind of made a big change. They started using different starches, sweet potato, tapioca being 2 of the main ones. There's a few others that they used. And then they started diluting it, sweetening it a bit. So this is when the alcohol content dropped from traditional soju, which is about 40%, to what it is now. Like I said, this is about 17%. So the ban on using rice to make alcohol was lifted not until 1999. And that's when you started to see more traditional sojus come back in the market. But Koreans already had a taste for this stuff, and this is what remains popular today. So in 2015, the soju companies started releasing some lower alcohol content, sweeter fruit flavored sojus. And I remember this very, very well because all my friends were talking about it, and this is what got me back to drinking soju after that whole Christmas incident. My favorites were the grapefruit and peach. I also like the pomegranate. The blueberry was absolutely terrible, tastes like cough syrup. And they also started introducing some carbonated sojus and some much lower alcohol content ones, like some are like 3%. Those were extremely popular with people who kind of had a hard time drinking the regular soju. So, how popular is soju? Extremely. Like I said at the beginning, this one specific brand, Jinro Soju, is the highest selling alcoholic brand in the world, and has been, I think I read, for 16 years. It is available absolutely everywhere, 24/7. you're never far away from finding soju. It's extremely rare to walk into a barbecue restaurant and look around at the tables and not see at least one of these green bottles on the table. Usually you'll find multiple ones. Sometimes you'll even see bottles lined up on the floor next to the table because there's just no more room on the table. There are advertisements for it everywhere. Actually, a measurement of how famous a celebrity is if they've been asked to be on a soju commercial. Only the very top stars get to advertise this stuff. You know you've made it if you are seen on a billboard or on a commercial advertising soju. I did look up a few statistics, or tongye as they're known in Korea. It's weird. Why would I need to know the word tongye or statistics? Sometimes I surprise myself with the random vocabulary words I know in Korean. Anyway, there was 9.6 million tons of this stuff produced last year. And domestic sales were 1.8 trillion won. I'll do the math and put up what that is in Canadian and American dollars. The average Korean consumes 87 bottles of this stuff a year, which works out to a bottle and a half a week. I found a chart that was quite shocking. It showed all of the top alcohol consuming countries and how many shots of spirits that they average per week. So this is not including beer and wine. I don't think anyone can come close to Europe on that. But this is for spirits, so any kind of the stronger alcohol. Number 2 place was Russia with 6.2 or 6.3 shots per week, something like that. Number 1 is Korea with more than double the amount of weekly shots done by the average Korean person at 13.7. Canada, USA, not even close. Canada was 2.5 and I think the US was 3.3. Soju started becoming more popular outside of Korea a few years ago. My last trip to Canada, I made it a point to look for soju at every LCBO I went to. I was happy to find it. Very small, like quarter shelf. It was a lot more expensive than we pay here in Korea. About a week ago, I sent my buddy Jordan in London, Ontario. I sent him on a mission to his local LCBO to see what the soju situation was, and I was surprised. He came back with a bunch of photos. It seems like soju has kind of grown in popularity. There's a lot more variety. Just so you know, you can find soju if you do want to try it. It is in Canada, so I recommend go try it. So that's soju, or at least my take on soju. There are other Korean alcoholic beverages available, and I do plan on doing videos on those in the future. I just thought soju was the one I had to do first. I just once again want to say thank you to everyone that's been subscribing. When I started this channel back in July, it was just a way of me dealing with not being able to see my friends and family for summer. And it's since outgrown that purpose. And I've been able to connect and chat with people all over the world. It's been amazing. I never thought this would happen. If you have any questions about Korea or just want to chat, leave a comment in the comment section or look me up on Instagram at DanDoesKorea. So for now, I will say konbae, everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys soon. Cheers.